Welcome to session 3. We hope that today's lesson will be useful to you. We plan to focus on the application for work-life experience, the student resume, your position description, and of course an introduction to the job task analysis. We believe that today's lessons will be a very important lesson for you, and we hope that you'll go back to it and rewind, look at your DVD again and see if it's what can help you. Wanted to remind you that you need to work consistently during the semester. This has been the reason that we see a number of students not do as well on the final product. The key is to set a time again in the evenings or the weekends that you're going to work on these lessons. And go ahead and then again watch it over and over till you grasp the concept. This is all sequential, so it's a building block. So we urge you to do that. The problem that we see sometimes is that we have a situation where that you have a 11 p.m. portfolio or a 12 midnight or a 1 a.m. or a 3 a.m. portfolio. And those are very weak because you don't have time to really absorb what we've been telling you during these lessons. So I urge you again to stay in contact with your instructor by electronic mail, watch these, read the handouts, and if your instructor requires a textbook, be sure that you take the textbook out as you're watching our program. So we're going to get started in this lesson 3, and again, this is a very important lesson. I want to talk about the application for work-life experience. This is found on the Occupational Education website. You want to fill it out completely and you want to notarize it. However, prior to completing the form, you should carefully evaluate the jobs that you're going to put on the form. Remember, not all jobs are necessary to be put on that form. For instance, if you have 20 years experience, and you want to apply for work-life credit, you may only want to use 7 years of that experience, but you want to pick the most important experience that you have and the one that relates to what we call the central DOT number. So that's important, and we're going to talk a little bit about this. So when you want to list on the application, there's several rules that you want to think of as you're doing that. First of all, when you're deciding, you want to look at all these rules. Do the jobs relate to each other? That's the first rule you want to consider. So you want to say, does carpentry relate to being in the artillery in the military? No, that doesn't relate. Does secretarial work relate to being a swimming instructor? No, it does not. You want to look at all of these jobs and you want to pick the best jobs that you have, and you want jobs that relate to each other. Don't list on your application a bunch of jobs that do not relate, and they're going to be clustered on an umbrella. Well, the second one that you want to look at is, can all jobs be verified? In other words, could you prove that you actually were a swimming coach? Could you prove that you were actually in the military by your DD-214? Could you prove that you had worked in a particular department store? Or could you prove that you had been a tax accountant? What do you, in effect, have as far as documentation? Put the jobs there that you can rely on, that you can prove. We'll talk about verification of these types of employment later on. But think about things that you can prove, that you have letters, documents, and maybe even still have contact with old bosses. So that one's important. Can the jobs be verified? Next thing that you need to think about is certainly important too. Do the jobs you have listed relate to large blocks of coursework you have taken? For instance, if you've taken an associate's degree in criminal justice, do the jobs you list relate to that field? This is real important because some of you may have an associate's degree in welding or associate's degree in cosmetology or associate's degree in electronics, associate's degree in business, but yet your work experience is in the area of plumbing. So we're going to have to be very careful to say, well, I have some plumbing experience, but I do have some carpentry experience. And if your associate's was in carpentry, I think the job that you ought to put on your application for work life should be in carpentry. Now, if you can look down the list, say, yes, I was a carpenter's apprentice and I worked up to a master carpenter, those jobs are good. You can put them together. But look at your associate's degree. What is it in? Because you may have a mismatch. You may have an associate's, again, in criminal justice, and you've been working for Sears selling washing machines. So that is an issue that you want to talk about, is that do the jobs relate to large block of coursework? So you want to look at this very carefully when you fill out this application for work-life experience. Take it very seriously, because these are the jobs you want us to hone in on. Now, I prefer to see 5 to 7 years of experience, but if you don't have 5 to 7 years of experience in a job, apply with what you have, because some of you are obviously younger. It is a one-time opportunity to apply. When in doubt, apply. Don't say, well, you know, I thought about applying for work life and then I decided not to, or whatever. If you have a particular position that you have work-life experience in, it meets these rules we were talking about, go back and replay these rules and talk about them as we're looking at that at this point. I think that's extremely important. And some final comments on the application for work-life experience. Again, remember what we said. If you don't have an extensive number of years in any career, it is wise to choose the career that you have the strongest experience, or where you have coursework related. Remember that. Look at the strongest career that you have, or where you have coursework that relates. And that's going to be very helpful to you. This is important that you remember this. So this is your application for work-life experience. You'll go to the Occupational Ed website, and there will be links where that you can download this particular application for work-life experience. And this is going to go in your portfolio, and it's going to be notarized. So you remember, you should start looking at this early on. Now, let's look at another part of the portfolio. We have something called a resume. This goes in your portfolio. Now, this is not your traditional resume that you are looking at most of the time. This resume is something that is different. This resume is one that was designed especially for this course. It's going to be listed on the Occupational Ed website and is composed of 7 sections. And I want to briefly mention the 7 sections that are on the resume. And first section would be under professional interests. And I put a kind of a statement here under it. I am interested in working toward a major sales and marketing position. So whatever your professional interests are, go ahead and list that in your resume. This is important, because you may want to put, I am interested in becoming a marketing manager for a major department store. I am interested in working toward promotion in the Department of Defense. I'm interested in becoming city manager of a medium-sized city within the state of Delaware or the state of Texas. This is important. Then you want to get into your formal education there. Now, you may be like this poor fella. Formal education, Lickskillet Community College, 24 hours. That's how many hours they had in college. Badger Hollow State College, 33 hours. So you may want to do that. So you want to list your formal education. What type of education did you have? You know, how many hours did you pick up? Texas State University, 72 hours. Some of you are coming back to Texas State after being out a number of years. Well, put them down, but put all of your education there that you've had, the formal. Then you want to list training. You should list some of your more important seminars and military courses that are not on a college transcript. Now, you don't have to list every kind of training. For instance, when you got a paper route, well, they sent you in for a couple hours of training on how to throw papers. That's not necessary. I want you to list some of the more important seminars and military courses or whatever you have had. List those on the training. That's very important. Now, the training is important because later on in the portfolio you may apply for training or non-collegiate experience. So I think this is something that you want to deal with. Well, the next area that you want to list on your resume is your work experience. So we may list something called Mudslinger, 1997 to 1999, and Feather Fluffer, 2000 to 2004. So this is something that you may want to put in your work experience. And so then after you put the work experience in, you just kind of briefly list the work experience. You may want to list your professional licenses. Somebody listed their driver's license. Now, that's not necessary to put your driver's license. We hope you can drive. But list major professional licenses, such as your realtor, LVN, or other important licenses. List the expiration date of the license. So in other words, if you held this in 1822, be sure that you list that it's expired, and probably if you held it then, you're expired too. If we look next under professional association is another one. List only important associations. Don't list controversial associations like Young Skinheads, Professional Nazis Incorporated, Young Communist Students. Don't do that. Not wise. I think you need to list only professional associations that are non-controversial. And so what I would do here is there's something related to your business. This is important to do. So we are getting a situation where we're building this little resume. Now here we go. We want to list the next area would be your honors, your listings, things that you have in awards. Things that you want to listing, anything that you have listed that's important to you, something that's good, anything that you have been told about, awarded, be sure you list the major honors you've attained in your life. Put everything down. Some of us have been listed in the newspaper. We've been awarded a military award. We've been given an honor by the Chamber of Commerce. List those. Again, don't list the controversial awards that you might have received. Be careful. I think you want your portfolio to remain balanced. Remember, the portfolio is a snapshot of who you are, and it gives the reader a quick view of your skills and competencies. So when we pull open the portfolio, we separate it from the big black clip that we're going to tell you to put on the portfolio to hold it together. We're going to look at the resume and we can see a snapshot of what you're going to present to us. So this is important. So far we've looked at the application for work life. We've looked at the resume. That's a very important beginning here as you're working on these. Then you have something called the position description. This is the next area that we want you to look at. Position description. This is found on the Occupational Education website again. It should be written as if your position is being advertised. The section of the position are listed also in the next few pages. It does resemble a major job announcement. Now we're talking about that if your position has been advertised, take the top position, the highest position that you're using in your application for work-life experience. Take that very carefully and go ahead and create a position description. Now that's on the Occupational Ed's website that you can download, and you know all of the sections involved, and I'll briefly mention those as we're doing this today. So remember, the position description is going to be the highest position that you have held that you are applying for work-life experience. Let me give you an example. If I have been a principal in a school, a vice principal, a teacher, and a teacher aide, perhaps then the principal is the highest position that I've held, so I'm going to create the position description for principal because all other jobs kind of cluster under that area. If you are a department manager for a particular department store, you were sales clerk in the beginning and you did inventory and then you went to human resources, now you're a department manager. I think that's probably going to be the one on the position description. Whatever clusters under it, like sales clerk, all the rest of those, they may relate to it, but use your best position. Use the one. Now, some of the students have commented that, well, you know, I have my best jobs 7 years ago. And I say, fine, go ahead and go back and use your best jobs. because there's some people who have actually declined in the curve there. So they've actually reached the pinnacle and they step down out of that high-pressured position. Well, pick up that high-pressured position to be the position description if it's the one you're going to use on your application for work experience. Remember, whatever positions you want on your application for work-life experience, be sure that one of those matches the position description, the one that's the strongest, as we've said. Go back and listen to this section again if you have some questions. I think you should be able to work on it. So we have in the position description, we have several parts to it. We have a general job description. We have examples of work performed. We have experience and training requirements. And we have educational requirements. General job description, examples of work performed, experience and training requirements, and educational requirements. These are parts of the position description. Like I said, it sounds a whole lot like an advertisement, and I think that's what it's going to be. You're showing all of those skills. Now later we're going to talk about job competency statements, and a lot of those skills that you're talking about in your position description are going to be used in your job task analysis, and they're used in your competency statements where you're going to talk about each skill. In this course, instead of saying, I'm a skilled realtor, you're going to tell us about your job in managing, you're going to tell us your job about listing homes, you're going to tell us about the job of showing the home. You're going to tell us about those in detail. Just saying you have the skill is not what we're going to be looking for. So we're looking for you to explain the skill, describe it in great detail. So position description is important. Which description is described? Again, the position description that you will complete should be the highest level position you have in your application for work life. In essence, it's a position you're using as a central DOT. All other positions that you're applying should cluster under it. Remember what central DOT is. Central DOT is the Dictionary of Occupational Titles that's the highest position that you're applying for, and you want all the other jobs to cluster under it that must relate to it. Now a good way to tell is, you know, is the first digit or so is kind of related to the other Dictionary of Occupational Titles, the central DOT. Do the other ones have the same beginning DOT numbers? That's a good help to you. If they are, they're probably related to it. But the position description, you want to use that highest level for that position that you're going to describe. Well, we've got our position description done. We know which job is the central DOT. We know that the other jobs cluster under it. We put them on the application for work-life experience. We've got all of these positions that cluster. And I have 20 years experience, but I only use 6 years or 7 years. That's fine. They're all clustered. Now we've got to figure out what are the skills in that job. What are the skills in that job? We're going to talk about something called the job task analysis. And I want you to think about this. You're going to want to get a dictionary. You want to get a thesaurus. You're going to want to use the online helps in that way, and you're wanting to see if you have a position description in front of you there. And this is one of the most important discussions. Your competency statements coming a little bit later that we're talking about in lessons, and remember we're going to keep coming back and forth, are going to be dependent on the kind of skills that you identify in this part of the portfolio. So the task analysis is super important. And just think about it, task analysis. So you're looking at the tasks that you do in your job and you analyze them. So this is important. In fact, you may want your study partner or your spouse, someone there close to you, and I've even found some people use their children, their teenage children, and say, Dad or Mom, you know, you do this in your job. You spend an awful lot of time doing that, and the mother says, hey, yeah, you're right. Or the dad says, hey, yeah, I hate to admit it, but, you know, my son or my daughter is absolutely on target. So you want to get some help when you're looking at the task or skills that you have. We'll talk about that, the task analysis. Well, what is it? Well, Dr. Michael Pearson defined it as an inferential process in which one must categorize observable skills. Yes, so you're going to look at observable skills that you have. Now I have some skills internally, but these are observable. The key to the task analysis is to review all of the skills that you have acquired that relate to your central DOT. What was that? Go back and look at it again, what we said earlier in this presentation. And you're going to categorize them into broad skills called instrumental, probably about 3 to 5 skills. And then we're going to divide them into about 10 components. But the beginning, we're going to start with something called instrumental skills. And that's going to be what we're going to look at. What are my broad skills that I have? Is the broadest skill I have planning? Is a broad skill I have managing? And we want all of your words in this task analysis to end in ing. So you're going to make them action words: managing, counseling, directing, all of these type of words. And your instructor will probably be giving you a sheet with some action verbs. And you want to take those and look at them carefully. And you may want to use the dictionary and look up some of the words that you have if you're not sure about other potential words that you could use. Speaking is certainly a word that is probably less important than a word lecturing, because when you lecture, it implies that you have great knowledge. So if I lecture to people, I'm not going to just put speaking to people. No, I'm going to list the word lecturing. That's important. That's important. So the task analysis is super important. Now, the component skills that we talked about just briefly a minute ago, they're subdivided into atomistic skills. The atom, we're very familiar with the atomic bomb. Well, hopefully this assignment's not going to be a bomb, but you're going to look at least 25 atomistic skills, and they are from the component skills, and the component skills are from the instrumental skills. There are numerous ways that you can look at the skills and the position to be on the central DOT, or the position which you'll cluster your jobs under. There's numerous ways to do that. Well, you can start figuring out, how in the world am I going to come up with all these skills? Some of the students have told me before, Dr. Springer, I didn't realize I had so many skills. I said, well, you need to realize that. You're very talented. And I want everyone who is watching this lesson today, as I am talking, to think about all of the skills that you have. Take a piece of paper while we're talking and just start jotting these down. What are the skills? Oh, I direct people. That's directing. I counsel, like we talked about a while ago. I arbitrate. And so arbitration and arbitrating a particular issue. And you're looking at other types of words that you do on a daily basis. You individuals who are in a particular craft area, such as carpentry or plumbing, you have many skills that you use. List those out. Those are ones that you can use, and start working on that. Well, one of the thoughts that you can use to create a task analysis, I want to talk to you a little bit about. They will say that they'll create their task analysis around 5 times. In other words, they'll just tear it up. It's a work in progress. Remember, the task analysis is a work in progress. You may go back and change the skill listed. But you got to remember that if I change one skill, it may impact a change on the other skills. Because if I place one skill under one component skill, and I change it, that may affect further down on my task analysis. Now remember, the task analysis form is on the Occupational Ed website, as we have mentioned. But don't be discouraged if you keep changing your task analysis, but work on it. Look at the skills and then get some of your friends or, again, individuals to help you. Now, one way that I think is pretty neat in figuring out how to build this task analysis is kind of similar to what I just said, but you take note cards and you write down one skill per card. So you may come up with 50 or 60 skills. In the handouts for this course, they'll be provided either by email or paper copy. You'll find some skill listed. And we talked about that a while ago. The instructor may give them out to you, or it may be emailed or placed on a site. But what you want to do is take your cards and list one skill on each card. And then you can begin to group them in. Are these the main skills? There are instrumentals. Then what are the sub-skills? Component. Then we have the atomistic below them. Some of you may come up with some horrendous number like 50 atomistic skills. I've had students that'll just bring hosts of skills, and I tell them, that's wonderful, but we only have one semester to do this course. So you're going to have to limit the number of skills. Well, Dr. Springer, which one should I keep? And I say the most important ones that you do. The ones that you can more easily explain, the ones that are most complex. You know, I use all of those terms to get people to thinking about what the skills they're going to use. So I would say using the little note card method is a pretty good way to begin, and you can lay them out. You know, I've had people that went on to their dining room table. You can take your laptop computer in there and you lay all the cards out, and then you begin to set this thing up. And it works. That is a good way to start building a task analysis. Now, as we say, you're going to cluster these under the instrumental or main skills, then under the component, and then under the atomistic. I hope everyone's with me. If you're not, go back and look at this again here. Go back to where we talk about work-life application, then move forward and look at this. Now, Dr. Michael Pearson gave us some examples from his textbook, and I want to bring up an example here of some skills. Well, first of all, look at